So far, nothing official has been said about the Nintendo Switch 2 or Nintendo's next-gen system, but pretty much everybody is confident that the system is going to be coming out at some point next year, and even just looking at all the signs of the types of games that are coming out and everything, it really does seem like Nintendo is kind of internally preparing to get ready for this next-generation system. But today, it seems like we might have just a small little crumb of information about the Switch 2 from the Nintendo of America president himself, Doug Bowser, as he was recently interviewed about Super Mario Wonder and a lot of the other things that Nintendo has been planning, and one of the things that he was asked about was Nintendo's next generation system and the plans for a Switch 2, and while his answer doesn't really tell us anything crazy, it still does kind of give us a little bit of perspective, and I do find it pretty interesting. Alright, so here is the entire interview. It's coming from Inverse, and it says right here, Nintendo of America president on the future of the Switch, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and more. And so this is a pretty big interview. It actually goes into other stuff about like Nintendo making a museum and Super Mario Bros. Wonder and things like that. So if you want to check out the entire interview, I will have it linked below in the description. But the most important thing is right here where Inverse just straight up asks and says, there have been reports that Nintendo showed off a successor to the Switch behind closed doors during Gamescom. As we have discussed, the Switch has had a long lifespan and a huge install base. How, when you consider the idea of a successor to the Switch, do you think about helping those people who are on the console transfer to the next platform while reassuring them that the content and investment in the Switch will somehow transfer to its successor? And so the answer that Doug Bowser gave here was, well, first, I can't comment, or I won't comment, I should say, on the rumors that are out there. But one thing we've done with the Switch to help with that communication and transition is the formation of the Nintendo account. In the past, every device we transitioned to had a whole new account system. Creating the Nintendo account will allow us to communicate with our players if and when we make a transition to a new platform to help ease that process or transition. Our goal is to minimize the dip you typically see in the last year of one cycle and the beginning of another. I can't speak to the possible features of a new platform, but the Nintendo account is a strong basis for having that communication as we make the transition. And so of course the answer that Doug Bowser gave here was your standard PR answer to pretty much any interview question where it answers the question without telling you really anything. So on paper it might seem like this doesn't really tell us anything about the Switch 2, but it's really kind of when you take a look at the exact stuff that he says here and really kind of dissect his answer to give you kind of an idea of the stuff that he might be implying through the answer that he gave. Now, the first thing that I find really interesting about all of this is how Doug Bowser actually refused to answer about any of the reports that have come out saying that Nintendo had showed off a successor to the Nintendo Switch behind closed doors during Gamescom. And the reason why this is so interesting is because Nintendo is kind of the type of company where whenever there is like a fake article or a fake report or anything that comes out about something that Nintendo might not actually be doing, they are the first ones who will just come out and officially make a statement and say like, this is not true, we're just going to dismiss this information. The best example of this that I can think of is in 2021, like right before the Nintendo Switch OLED was about to come out, there was a big report that I think Bloomberg came out with that said that Nintendo had actually been sending out 4K development kits for a Nintendo Switch to other developers, and that apparently they've already talked with some who've said that they've had a 4K Nintendo Switch dev kit. And so this came out, and now everybody was kind of going crazy because they were like, wait a minute, a Switch OLED is about to come out in a few weeks, and you're telling me now that Nintendo is also working on a 4K Nintendo Switch? And at the time, I mean, it's kind of speculated now that those 4K dev kits were actually for the OLED, and the OLED was supposed to be like a Switch Pro originally, but then Nintendo canceled pretty much all their plans and just released the system with a better screen. So that's a whole other thing, and it seems like now all of those dev kits were actually taken back and they've given them new dev kits for their next gen platform instead. But the point is, after that report came out, Nintendo actually tweeted something on their corporate account talking about how there was this report that came out about a 4K Switch and all of that, and like they were here to confirm that none of that is true and we can just deny all of that information. And so that was a pretty big thing because when that came out, everyone was like, okay, Nintendo is not playing around. They're just going to dismiss all of these things if they're not true. But the interesting thing is all of the reports that have come out this year about Nintendo showing off a Switch 2 at Gamescom and all of that, there hasn't been anybody who has straight up just come and said like, yeah, this is not true, we didn't actually do this, which just gives you more and more kind of reason to believe that this probably did actually happen, and it definitely does make a lot of sense. Like, of course, if a new system is coming out next year, Nintendo probably did meet with developers behind closed doors to give them a little peek of exactly what the system is capable of and what it's going to be able to do. And so that's why, like, a lot of the times the people who are always denying that there's not going to be a Switch 2, or like we're talking too much about this and like there's not going to be anything, like I feel like if this was actually just fake information, like if this Switch 2 being shown off at Gamescom never happened, I definitely think like there would have been a big tweet from Nintendo's corporate account saying like, there have been reports going on recently that we had showed off a Switch 2 successor during Gamescom, and we're here to tell you that that didn't happen at all, and they didn't do that. Why? Because it probably did happen and they can't really say anything about it. So yeah, because if they straight up said like, yeah, we actually did show it off, that would be definitive confirmation. So the fact that Nintendo and even Doug Bowser is refusing to say anything about it probably adds more to the credibility that it actually did happen. And then of course the other big thing that Doug Bowser had mentioned here in his response was the Nintendo account. And he talked about how the Nintendo account is going to be transitioning over to the next system as well. And this is actually not brand new information. This was something that Nintendo's global president, I think Shuntaro Furukawa, had talked about, like I think in 2020 or even 2021, where they even gave us this image right here that shows us that from the Nintendo Switch to the next dedicated gaming system, the Nintendo account is going to be transitioning over. So it's pretty much confirmed at this point that the Nintendo accounts that we all have right now with our Nintendo Switches are going to be coming over to the next system as well. And Doug Bowser basically explained how in the past, whenever we transitioned to a brand new Nintendo system, usually you had to create like a new system account on there or like a new user or something. And like if you remember on the 3DS and the Wii U, we actually had those things called the Nintendo Network IDs, which were like your like little gamer tags that you had on that system. And so now Nintendo has kind of basically put all of that aside and has started this brand new thing called the Nintendo account, which is a part of your current Nintendo Switch. And they want to have this Nintendo account going forward, which is definitely the right thing to do. I feel like having a whole new account system with every new system is a really stupid thing. By having one dedicated account system, you can now keep that going for generations and generations, like how PlayStation basically has like the PSN account, where you have that from the PS3 to the PS4 to the PS5, and I'm sure it's also going to be carrying over to the PS6 when that comes out in the future. So it's a really nice way to just kind of have a seamless transition to a new platform. And speaking of these Nintendo accounts, it once again puts up the discussion for backwards compatibility to possibly happen with the next Nintendo system, and I definitely do think that it is going to be there, and I feel like one of the biggest reasons to believe it is because of how they're talking about with this Nintendo account, as if you're going to be able to use your current Nintendo account to be able to log into the next new Nintendo system as well, it definitely would make sense to theoretically be able to go into the eShop of the new Nintendo system and be able to see all of the games that you've downloaded digitally onto your current Nintendo Switch, re-download all of those onto your new system, be able to bring over your online subscription as well with Nintendo Switch Online, be able to re-download all of your classic games like N64 Online and SNES Online and all of that. So it feels like this would be the best way to have backwards compatibility for digital players. And then obviously like physical people should probably just have a cartridge slot. Maybe it's going to be like one cartridge slot that accepts both the new games and also the last gen like the 3DS, or it could be like two separate slots where maybe one is for like Switch 1 games and another one is for Switch 2 games. But either way, I do think that backwards compatibility is definitely going to be a big thing, and especially with how Doug Bowser was even saying here, it's really important that we want to kind of minimize kind of what you see here with the dip of the last year on one system and the beginning of a new system. And I feel like the best way that you can minimize that dip is by telling them, hey, by the way, all of these amazing Nintendo Switch games that you love right now, you can still play them on the next system as well. And that way they already have an insane library to start with, while also having the brand new next gen games coming out on that as well. And so yeah, that is pretty much the statement about the Nintendo Switch 2 from the Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well, as I'm going to be talking more about the Switch 2 as the information comes out. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think about all of this. How do you guys feel about how Doug Bowser is talking about the next generation platform? Do you think that it means that there could be backwards compatibility? How do you feel about the whole Nintendo account moving on over and all of that? Definitely be sure to give me your thoughts down below in the comments. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros. And Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.